Joining us now is the director of the National Security Law and Policy Program at George Mason University and former chief counsel and senior advisor for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Jamil Jaffer. It is great to have you with us. And I'm just curious, listening to Trey Yanks there, if you can add anything from your perspective to what Trey was just sharing, especially as it relates to the expansion of this conflict.
Well, Kevin, I think Trey is exactly right. What you saw here tonight or last night in Israel time was a set of strikes, about 70 targets hit by Israeli defense forces, 20 militants killed in the lead up to what they expected would be a significant attack. And now we're seeing the beginning of that attack starting to take place with Hezbollah launching an extensive drone strike there in northern Israel, likely to spread further. We know that Hezbollah has over 100,000 rockets there stocked up in southern Lebanon, prepared to hit northern Israel. We've seen them conduct these strikes before. They did just a few days ago in Golan. Obviously, about a week or two back, the strike that killed 12 students in Majel Shams. So obviously an ongoing conflict, one that didn't start last night and has been going on for quite a while, but that began with Hezbollah and began with the Iran backers of Hezbollah coming after Israel repeatedly and against the U.S. as they have for many years, killing American soldiers during the Iraq War, and more recently the Houthi strikes against commercial shipping in the Red Sea, not to mention their backing of Hamas in Gaza.
Let me ask you this, Professor, and listen, I get it when we talk about this inside Washington and those of us who are, let's just say, dialed into policy, this all makes sense. But for the viewers at home who may not understand the importance of unpacking what's happening there and why this is impactful for Americans, broadly speaking, what would you say to them?
Well, look, what we're talking about, Kevin, here is a couple of terrorist groups, Hezbollah and Hamas, that have been on the American terrorist group list since the beginning of that list, since the early mid-'90s, right? These are terrorist groups that are backed by Iran, that have long come after Americans, have attacked and killed American soldiers in Iraq, have killed Americans in the Middle East. Today alone, we have Americans still kidnapped in Gaza, being held hostage by Hamas. And this is a country, Iran, a government in Iran, not the country, not its people, but its government, that absolutely is opposed to American leadership in the world, and it's threatened us here at home, and it's actually tried to conduct terrorist attacks here in the United States, even trying to kill significant leaders. They attempted to kill a Saudi ambassador in the United States here in D.C. at Cafe Citron. They have active threats against former American officials who served in the Trump administration after we killed Qasem Soleimani, after they killed American soldiers in the Middle East a few years back. So this is a country with a leadership that is targeting us, targeting Americans here at home in the United States, and remains an enemy to us and our allies in Israel in the Middle East.
You know, I'm so glad you pointed that out, and in particular for those of us old enough to remember 1979 and the 444 days of the hostage crisis, people need to, I believe, understand the history of what's been happening between the government here and that in Tehran and how this ultimately can play out by way of their proxy. People don't seem to understand often when I have a conversation with them that it's not Lebanon per se, it's Iran using Hezbollah through Lebanon. Is that fair to say?
No, that is exactly right, Kevin. And it's not just Hezbollah. It's Hezbollah in Lebanon attacking the United States, attacking Israel. It's Hamas in Gaza attacking Israel. It's the Houthis in Yemen attacking commercial shipping and American vessels in the Persian Gulf. And it's Iran-backed militias in Iraq that killed hundreds of U.S. soldiers when we were at war there in that country using explosive form penetrators. So this is the Iranian government, not the Iranian people, but the Iranian government coming after us, as they have since, as you point out, in 1979 when they kidnapped those American hostages. It was their operatives who killed Americans at the embassy in Beirut as well. And so this is a war that has gone on between us and them, and they are continuing to take the fight to us and our allies. And it's important that we respond effectively, not just to defend our own interests there in the Middle East, but defend those who've been attacked by terrorists as we were on 9/11. You know, if you think about it, Kevin, what happened in October to Israel was the equivalent on a population-adjusted basis of a dozen 9/11 attacks against the United States.
And with that, you would certainly understand why, from the perspective of the Israelis, and in particular their government and the IDF, they will stop at nothing to not just avenge what happened to their people, but also, as you pointed out, continue the effort to rescue the hostages. The director of the National Security Law and Policy Program at George Mason University and former chief counsel and senior advisor of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Jamil Jaffer. So great to have you with us, Professor. We certainly appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for having me on, Kevin.